Imagine a quiet village. Bamboo groves swaying in the wind, the smell of wet soil after rain, a dirt road that curves past a lonely pond. By day it looks ordinary, but when the sun falls, the villagers whisper, they say the pond is cursed. Tonight I'll tell you the story of Ethan Cole and his family, and how the pond claimed them one by one. So dim the lights, settle in and feel the chill. What happens when a pond doesn't just reflect the sky, but stares back at you? Ethan was poor. His hut stood with reed walls patched in mud, a straw roof sagging in the monsoon. Behind it stretched the pond, black and silent. Villagers avoided it, but Ethan thought little of the rumors. He married young. His first wife was kind, quiet, and soon pregnant, but on the night of labor, joy turned to despair. She died suddenly. The baby too. No reason, no illness, just gone. The midwife whispered she was strong. It makes no sense. Ethan broke. He cried until he grew hard. To survive, he stole chickens, grain, anything he could grab. He was caught, arrested, sentenced to 12 years. But before prison, he remarried. His new wife bore him 3 little girls. Then the law dragged him away. His wife, his parents, and the children were left alone. One dawn, his wife stirred awake. Beside her, the bed was empty. Her eldest, just 4 years old, was gone. Panic ripped through the hut. Villagers searched fields, paths, yards. Then someone screamed from the pond. There she was, floating face up, hair spread on the black water. The mother collapsed. The grandmother tore her clothes in grief. Villagers whispered, the pond has claimed her. They buried her with prayers. The family tried to heal, but grief has a way of returning. A few nights later, the second child, barely 2, was also gone from her mother's side. They searched again. This time, what they found was worse. At the pond beneath the family's dinghy, her small body was wedged. Her head stuck out one side of the keel, her feet out the other, as if something had placed her there. Silence fell. Then, murmurs, this is not natural, something lives here. They buried her too, 2 tiny graves side by side. The villagers begged the family, bring a healer. This is beyond us. A healer came. He stepped into the yard, chanting holy words. The family clung to hope, and then it began. Before dozens of eyes, the healer was snatched into the air by nothing visible. His body slammed into the dirt. Again, his screams filled the night. God save me. His leg bent at an awful angle. He fled limping into the dark, never to return. The family froze in terror. If healers could not stand, what hope was left? That night, Ethan's father stepped out to relieve himself. His gaze drifted to the pond, and he saw it. A black figure, tall, headless, standing on the dinghy. From its chest blinked dozens of eyes, wet, red, glowing. They flickered all at once, all locked on him. He screamed, collapsed. His wife and daughter-in-law dragged him inside, poured water, prayed, but fever gripped him. Days later, he was gone. The pond had taken another. Deaths followed like falling dominoes. Ethan's mother, his wife, his youngest daughter, all lost. By the time Ethan returned from 12 years in prison, his family was graves. No laughter, no children, only silence. He wept until his eyes gave no tears. Still, he rebuilt. He tried to live again. He remarried. A son was born. For a moment there was hope, until one morning the boy disappeared. Villagers cast nets into the pond. When they pulled, something heavy caught. They lifted it, and there was the boy's body, tangled in the ropes. Coal smeared around his eyes, a black dot pressed on his forehead. His mother's scream pierced the sky. Ethan fell to his knees. Why? Why my children? No answer, only the pond. Another son came later. One afternoon, his wife asked a neighbor girl, 9 years old, to watch the baby while she washed clothes. The boy gurgled, playing in her lap. Then the reed wall cracked. The baby rose, lifted into the air, pulled toward the gap by unseen hands. The girl screamed. Ethan's wife rushed in. She grabbed her son's ankles. The unseen thing pulled back. The baby shrieked, his body stretched between 2 forces, mother and monster. Neighbors rushed in, and suddenly the invisible grip let go. The baby fell into her arms, alive, but the terror didn't end. The boy began appearing in impossible places. laid across the roof beam, inside the rice bin, on the cold stove at dawn, always placed. Never harmed yet always wrong. Later, a daughter was born, and she too vanished and reappeared in strange places. The family could take no more. They abandoned the hut, leaving it to rot. The pond darkened, silent, untouched. Imagine losing your children one by one to water that never spills over, to hands you cannot see, to eyes that blink where no head should be. The villagers of Brookfield still walk the long way around that pond. No one fishes there, no one washes there. After dark, no one dares even look at it. The graves remain. The story of Ethan Cole's family is still told. Stay away from the pond, or it will take you too. Some places feel ordinary until you know their secrets. In the quiet village of Willowford, there stood a great lychee tree. To most, it was just a tree, broad branches, cool shade, sweet fruit every summer. But for one family, that tree became the center of a terrifying warning, and a deal with something not human. What if the tree outside your window wasn't just a tree, but a home for something watching you? Samuel's grandfather decided it was time to build a new home. The old mud hut was small, the family growing, so he brought in bricks, mortar, workers. A bigger, better house began to rise right beside the lychee tree. By the time the walls reached window height, the tree towered over the half-built house like a silent guardian. Nobody thought twice about it, until one evening during prayer, his sister Aunt Leela was devout. She prayed every day without fail. That night, after finishing her sunset prayer, she turned her head to the right to end it, and froze. An old man stood before her, white beard flowing, cap on his head, robe shining like pale moonlight. His eyes calm, his presence heavy. He spoke clearly. Your brother may build, families must grow. We do not object, but this tree do not cut it. We live here. Our family has made this tree our home for generations. Beneath its roots lie 7 jars of coins. Dig them up, build us a house with them. With the rest, build yours. But if you cut this tree without keeping the promise, you will suffer. And then he was gone, vanished as though he'd never stood there. Aunt Leela sat frozen, her heart hammering. Had she imagined it? No, it was too real. She told the family at once. Some gasped, some shivered, but one man only laughed. Uncle Robert smirked, chewing his petal leaf. Ghost stories. Lies, you women see shadows and call them spirits. He spat red juice into the dirt. If spirits live here, let them show me now. The words were barely out of his mouth when his face twisted. His throat closed, his eyes bulged wide with terror. He dropped to his knees, clawing at his neck, choking. The betel leaf lodged in his windpipe. He convulsed, skin turning blue. The family screamed, pouring water, reciting prayers, blowing verses over him. For long, horrible seconds, he struggled, then suddenly coughed, gasped, and air rushed back into his lungs. Pale, shaking, he whispered only 2 words. I believe. The family needed no more proof. The warning was real. Construction stopped that very day. The half-built walls were pulled down brick by brick, the foundation abandoned, the lychee tree left standing. For weeks, no one dared touch even its fallen leaves. Nobody burned its branches. The tree stood alone, looming and untouched. Children avoided its shade. The family whispered, if they live there, let them be. But the story didn't end. One night, Samuel's grandfather dreamed. In the dream, the same old man appeared again beneath the lychee tree. His beard glistened, his robe shone. His voice was calm but commanding. You have done well. You did not cut the tree. You did not disturb us. For that, we are grateful. But now you fear too much. You treat the tree as cursed. When it is not, use its fruit. Gather its fallen branches. Keep it clean as you always did. Care for it and we will never harm you. The dream faded. When grandfather woke, he shared the vision. The family slowly began to relax. They began to treat the tree as before. They picked the ripe lychees, sweet and red. They swept the fallen leaves. They burned the dry branches in their stoves, and nothing bad happened. Seasons turned, the tree remained, strong green, alive, and the villagers remembered. They remembered the choking uncle, the warning, the dream. They said the lychee tree was not haunted by evil but by guardians beings who only wanted respect, and respect they received. To this day, the tree still stands, its roots deep, its branches heavy with fruit. Children play beneath it, families gather in its shade, but no axe has ever touched its trunk, no saw has ever cut its branches, because in Willowford, people know the lychee tree is not theirs alone. Imagine building your dream house and abandoning it halfway because of a single warning. Would you risk the spirit's anger or walk away as they did? Next time you pass a great tree heavy with fruit, ask yourself, who else might be living there, unseen, watching? Some nights carry a silence so heavy that even the smallest sound feels louder than it should. In the village of Willowford, silence was broken one evening by barking dogs, a strange glow, and a fireball that seemed to come from nowhere. What if the light you see outside your window isn't a lantern, but something that shouldn't exist? It was just after sunset. The sky had turned a deep indigo, stars beginning to poke through. Samuel's mother, as a young girl, sat with her family inside their small home. Beyond their yard lay the family graveyard, a cluster of old headstones half covered in weeds, and beside it a large pond. On the bank stood an enormous mango tree, its dark leaves rustling whenever the breeze blew. That evening, the family waited for a relative, Samuel's great uncle, who was coming to visit. The house was busy with expectation, but just as the night deepened, the dogs began to howl. It wasn't the usual barking of village strays. This was frantic, furious, as though something unseen had stirred them up. The sound echoed across the pond. The grandmother muttered, "Dogs only cry like that when they see spirits." The family gathered at the window, and that's when they saw it. Above the mango tree, floating in the dark, burned a ball of fire. It was the size of a football, glowing orange-red, shimmering as if alive. It hung in the air, swaying gently, lighting the branches. Beneath it, the dogs gathered under the tree, circling, barking, growling, their eyes fixed upward. Their cries rose higher, louder, sharper. The family gasped. Samuel's mother clutched her shawl. Aunt Leila whispered prayers under her breath. Children peeked from behind their mother's arms. The fireball pulsed, glowing brighter, then dimmer, as though breathing. Nobody dared move closer. They only watched from the safety of their doorway. Minutes passed. The fireball lingered. The barking never stopped. Then, slowly, almost lazily, the light began to fade. It dimmed to a pale glow, then shrank smaller and smaller until, with a final flicker, it disappeared into nothing. Silence dropped heavy. The dogs whimpered, then grew quiet. The night returned to stillness. The family sat frozen, whispering, what had they just seen? Moments later, Samuel's great uncle finally arrived. He walked the very path that ran beside the pond beneath the mango tree, but he had seen nothing. No fireball, no dogs, just the quiet of night. When the family told him what had happened, he only nodded. It was no danger, he said calmly. Sometimes the jinn gather. They sit in trees, they hold their meetings. That light you saw was not for you. It was for them. You did well to keep your distance. The words comforted no one. The next morning, when daylight came, the family crept out to the mango tree. They searched its branches for scorch marks, for burned leaves, for anything that proved what they saw, but the leaves were green, unburned, the bark untouched. Not even a single branch singed. Yet the path that wound beneath the tree once trodden daily seemed different now. The villagers whispered about it, their voices low. Little by little, people began avoiding that way after dark. Some avoided it altogether. The path that once led easily past the pond slowly disappeared beneath weeds and grass, abandoned out of fear. And still, when the wind blows across the graveyard at night, some villagers say they hear it, the bark of dogs, the rustle of leaves, and once in a while, a faint orange glow hovering in the distance. Imagine standing at your window and seeing a ball of fire burning silently above a tree, knowing it is not flame, not lantern, not anything human. Would you step outside, or turn away and pretend it wasn't there? The fireball of Willowford was never seen again by Samuel's family, but villagers know the story well. They say it was no accident. Spirits choose where they gather, and once chosen, the ground itself remembers. And if you happen to walk by that mango tree, past the graves, past the still pond, and you hear dogs barking in the dark, do not look up. Some people walk through the dark without fear. They trust the path, trust themselves, trust that nothing waits in the shadows, but sometimes something really does. In the village of Willowford, one man often walked home late at night, passing a lonely grove near the edge of the Hindu quarter. His name was Marcus. People said he was brave, fearless even, and perhaps he was, but what followed him in those nights was not courage. It was something else. What if the animals you see on the road at night aren't animals at all, but guardians? Marcus was used to traveling the same path from the market back home. The dirt track wound past the edge of the Hindu quarter, then through a grove of old trees. At night, the grove turned black as pitch, only the sound of leaves crunching underfoot. Almost every evening, as he reached that place, he noticed them, a black dog, a black cat. They would appear from nowhere, slip out of the shadows, and fall into step behind him. The dog padding softly, the cat weaving silently. They never barked, never hissed, they only walked with him. At first he thought nothing of it, but it happened again and again, every night. Sometimes they would follow him all the way to his yard, and when he turned and said softly, "You may leave now," they simply vanished into the dark. Marcus told no one for a long time, and when he did, people said they are jinn, but not bad ones. They are protecting you. Marcus shrugged. He was not afraid. If anything, he felt safer knowing they were there. But one night, things changed. It was late, later than usual. The air felt heavy, colder than it should. Marcus adjusted his shawl as he stepped into the grove. The black dog and cat appeared as always, slipping into step behind him. But tonight he felt something else too, a presence. The air shifted, carrying a chill that raised the hairs on his neck. The leaves crackled differently, as if someone heavier was walking close. He slowed, listened behind him, the soft padding of paws, and something else, a heavier tread. Not the sound of paws on leaves, but the sound of a large body crushing twigs, snapping branches. Marcus turned, and what he saw froze him. From the darkness emerged a grotesque figure, tall, misshapen. Its skin glistened black, its eyes glowed red like burning embers, its mouth stretched wide, a long tongue dripping down its chin, and from its shoulders sprouted not two arms, but four. The thing hissed, glaring at him. Marcus's heart slammed, his breath caught. He wanted to run, but his legs locked. And then, before the monster could move, the black dog and the black cat leapt forward. But they were no longer the size of a dog and a cat. In mid-leap, their bodies grew. The cat stretched into the size of a tiger fur, bristling, claws flashing. The dog swelled into a beast the size of a horse, jaws gaping with glowing teeth. They crashed into the monster with a roar. The grove erupted in chaos, leaves flew, branches snapped, the ground shook with the weight of their struggle. The monster bellowed, its tongue lashing, its extra arms striking, but the guardians tore at it, biting, clawing, forcing it back. Marcus didn't wait to see the end. He ran through the grove, his sandals slapping the dirt, his lungs burning. He burst into his yard, collapsed face down, and screamed for help. His family rushed out. They lifted him, shaking, his face white as chalk. His words tumbled out half-broken, trembling. The story spilled from his mouth. Villagers gathered, listening. Some shook their heads, others crossed themselves in prayer. The elders nodded gravely. The guardians saved you. Without them, you would not be here. But Marcus paid a price. For weeks afterward, his body wasted, his cheeks sank, his eyes hollowed. He looked as if something had drained his very blood. No food filled him, no sleep rested him. His strength vanished. Healers came, clerics prayed. Holy verses were recited over him. Salt water poured, iron blades heated and waved to ward off evil. Slowly, painfully, he began to recover. But Marcus never again walked that path at night. Not once. From then on, he took the long road, even if it meant miles out of his way. Imagine being followed every night by a dog and a cat, only to learn they were guardians in disguise. Imagine seeing them transform into giants, fighting a monster with 4 arms and glowing eyes just to keep you alive. Would you ever walk alone again? Marcus lived many more years. He married, had children, even became a respected elder in the village. But whenever someone asked him about that night, he only shook his head and said, I owe my life to two shadows, and I never walk the grove again. To this day, the grove near the Hindu quarter carries a weight of silence. People say if you walk there after dark, you may hear heavy footsteps behind you or feel eyes watching. And if you're lucky, you might also hear the soft padding of paws. Some curses don't strike in silence. They announce themselves through warnings, through dreams, through bargains made too late. In a village not far from Willowford, one wealthy family learned this the hard way. After they decided to cut down a tree that was never theirs to touch, what if every drop of milk you poured was already promised to something unseen? The story begins with Samuel's aunt, who married into a prosperous household. Her new home was large, filled with servants and livestock. The family owned many cattle, dozens of healthy, milk-giving cows. Their wealth seemed untouchable, but near the house stood a towering tamarind tree, its roots twisted deep into the earth, its branches stretched wide like grasping arms. Some villagers said old spirits lived there. The family ignored the whispers. One day, Samuel's aunt's husband, her new father-in-law, decided he needed more space for the cattle. We'll cut the tree, he declared. We'll build another cowshed here. This tree takes up land. Better it's gone. And so workers were hired. Saws were sharpened. At dawn, men gathered with long blades. The tamarind tree loomed above them, its leaves rustling though no wind blew. They set the saws to its bark, wood groaned, dust flew. Slowly they cut through, but when the final stroke came, the tree did not fall. Not forward, not back. It stood upright, severed completely at its base but frozen, as if invisible hands held it in place. The men stepped back, pale with fear. The family rushed to call a local cleric. He arrived quickly, eyes narrowing at the sight. You've made a mistake, he said. This tree was not yours to cut, but since you've begun, we must finish with prayer. He ordered everyone to sit. Verses were recited, holy words filling the air. And as the final word was spoken, the tree groaned and at last crashed to the earth with a thunderous crack. The wood was chopped into pieces, the logs piled up, ready to sell. The family thought it was over, but that night, the curse announced itself. Samuel's aunt's husband dreamed of a figure, black, shadowy, its eyes burning like coals. It stood close, whispering, you destroyed our home. For that you will pay. From now on, every cow you own will give only half its milk. The rest we will take, and the child in your wife's womb will be born mute, a lifetime of silence. He woke drenched in sweat, his heart pounded, but he said nothing. Perhaps it was just a nightmare. Morning came. The cows were milked. Where once they gave 10 liters each, now they gave 5. No more. No matter how much they were fed, no matter what was tried, the milk was halved. Days passed, weeks, it never changed. And then the baby came, a girl, beautiful, healthy, bright-eyed. But when her mouth opened, no sound, not a cry, not a wail, not even a whisper. She was silent, utterly mute. The family despaired. Doctors were called, healers summoned. Nothing could change her voice. The clerics shook their heads. This is the price of the tree. The girl grew. She laughed silently, played silently, smiled silently. Her parents loved her dearly, but always they remembered the warning. The curse was real. Years later, when she reached marriageable age, her father worried, who will take my silent daughter? But fate made its own path. He had raised a servant boy in the house, loyal and kind. In time, the mute daughter married him. They lived together in quiet peace. They had children of their own, healthy, normal, voices loud, laughter bright. The curse had stopped with her, but the tamarind tree was never forgotten. Imagine cutting down a tree only to find your cattle drained and your child robbed of a voice before she even breathed. Would you still believe it was only wood? Or admit it was something else entirely? The logs of that tamarind tree never brought profit. When the family tried to float them across the river to sell, the wood sank, dragging the boat down with it. Men barely escaped with their lives. The river claimed every piece. The wealth of the family dwindled. Their cows gave less and less. Their barns stood half empty. And in the village, people whispered, "That family cut the tree of spirits. Look at them now. Look at their curse." Today, people pass the place where the tree once stood. The land is bare. But at night, some say they hear whispers in the wind. Others swear they hear the sound of milk being poured onto the ground, though no one is there. And if you listen closely, you might hear a child's laughter, with no sound at all.
There are ponds that give life where people wash, drink, and bathe, and then there are ponds that take. In one village, long ago, a pond was dug, but when the shovels struck the earth, they did not find only mud and water, they found bones. What if the water you drink hides the dead beneath it? Samuel's relatives remembered it well. His aunt had married into a family whose home sat beside such a pond. The land looked ordinary, but when the pond was first carved, laborers struck something buried. Human remains, old brittle bones from a forgotten grave. The family gathered the remains and reburied them near the village cemetery. They thought the matter ended, but something else had claimed the pond. Years later, when Samuel's uncle married, his wife struggled to carry children. Time after time, she became pregnant, only to miscarry within months. Doctors had no explanation. Healers tried. Clerics prayed. Nothing stopped it. Finally, the family sought help from a renowned mystic. He listened quietly, then nodded gravely. "It is the pond. When you dug it, you disturbed the dead. The bones were reburied, but the spirits did not leave. They have settled in the water, and they hunger. Each time a child forms in the womb, they feed on it." The family sat in stunned silence. The mystic continued, "I will go there. I will see." On a Friday he arrived. Villagers gathered to watch. He walked slowly around the pond 3 times, murmuring prayers, casting glances into the still water. Then he pulled from his bag a flask of blessed water drawn from the Zamzam well. He lifted it high, whispered over it, then sprinkled it along the banks of the pond. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then the water rippled, though no wind blew. A low hum filled the air, like 100 voices whispering at once. The villagers shivered. The mystic raised his voice, chanting louder, "By the Most High, leave this place." And then the whispers stopped. The ripples stilled. Silence. He turned to the family. "They are gone for now. But remember, spirits are drawn to places they once claimed. If the pond is left unguarded, they may return. Keep this land pure. Do not anger them again." For a time, peace returned, and not long after, Samuel's uncle's wife bore her first healthy child. Then another. Their house rang with laughter instead of sorrow, but not everything healed. The pond, though blessed, remained strange. People avoided its edge. They said its reflection looked too deep, as if you could fall forever. They said fish would not live in it. And at night, some swore they saw figures standing at the water's edge, gazing down as though looking for something they had lost. Imagine bending down to wash your face in a pond, and seeing not your reflection, but someone else's, someone with hollow eyes, staring back from beneath the water. The family never forgot to this day. When children ask why they don't play by the pond, the elders answer simply, "Because it is not ours. It belongs to them." The pond of bones remains still, reflecting the sky by day, the moon by night. Ordinary to the stranger's eye, but to the villagers it is a reminder. The dead are never gone if you disturb their rest. And if you listen closely on quiet nights, some say you can still hear it, the faint splash of water with no ripples, the whisper of voices rising from the depths. This was the pond of bones, on Down Under Mysteries. If this story chilled you, press like, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more real feeling hauntings every week. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep the lights on.